My parents kicked me out the night I survived my twin brother's attempt to end my life, but they never expected what I'd do next. I was always the forgotten twin awkward shadow to my brother's golden spotlight. For 17 years, I accepted being second best in my Portland home, watching my parents shower Ethan with love while tossing me scraps of attention. But when puberty transformed me and a beautiful girl named Madison chose me over him, I discovered just how dangerous jealousy can be. What started as petty sabotage escalated to cut brake lines and a near-fatal crash all orchestrated by my own twin. The most chilling part? My parents knew exactly what he was capable of. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about what happens when the underestimated twin finally stands up and fights back. Stay until the end to see how I turned years of being invisible into my greatest weapon. When did you realize that your own blood would choose to see you dead rather than thriving? I was always the forgotten twin. Not officially, of course. My parents would never admit that out loud. But whenever Ethan and I stood side by side at family gatherings in our Portland suburb, people gravitated toward him first. Ethan was born charismatic, athletic, and effortlessly confident. I came into this world quiet, broad-shouldered, and awkward, existing in his shadow from day one. When we turned 13, my parents rented out the entire rooftop section of Riverview, Portland's fanciest restaurant overlooking the Willamette River. They surprised Ethan with a custom engraved watch that must have cost at least 3 months of savings. I wasn't even invited to the celebration. For me, we had leftover pizza at home the next evening. My mom didn't remember to buy candles, so I ended up blowing out the flame from her cigarette lighter while she checked her texts. Every morning before school, my mom would prepare Ethan's protein-packed breakfast with sliced avocado arranged in the shape of a smiley face. Mine was typically a granola bar tossed in my general direction with a hurried, "You're going to miss the bus, Jake." The message couldn't have been clearer if they'd painted it on our bedroom wall. Ethan was the son they'd always wanted, and I was just there. I remember this one Christmas when relatives came over. My Aunt Susan asked what sports we played. Before I could answer, my dad jumped in. "Ethan's the athlete of the family. He's already being scouted for varsity basketball as a freshman." Then he glanced at me and added, almost as an afterthought, "Jake's more of an indoor kid." Everyone nodded and immediately asked Ethan more questions while I disappeared into the background like I always did. By sophomore year, I had accepted my place in our family hierarchy. I'd learned to expect nothing on holidays, to do my own laundry when mom forgot mine, and to celebrate my achievements alone. I didn't blame them anymore. That's just how things were in the Peterson household. Own son in the spotlight, one in the shadows. But what I didn't know then was that shadows can hide strength, and sometimes being underestimated is the greatest advantage of all. Then something happened that no one, especially not my family, could have predicted. Junior year arrived like a second puberty for me. Over the summer, I'd shot up almost 4 inches, finally growing into my broad shoulders. The baby fat melted away, replaced by definition that came from the quiet hours I spent at the community gym while Ethan was at his basketball camps. My voice deepened, my jawline sharpened, and suddenly the awkward shadow-dwelling twin was gone. The first day back at Lincoln High was surreal. I walked through the hallway and noticed people actually looking at me, not through me or past me to find Ethan. In chemistry, Sarah Jenkins asked if I wanted to be her lab partner, which had never happened before. During lunch, 2 seniors invited me to sit with them. I kept glancing around, certain this was some elaborate prank orchestrated by my brother. But it wasn't. For the first time in my life, I was being seen. Madison Chen was the biggest surprise of all. She transferred to our school that September, brilliant, beautiful, and somehow inexplicably interested in me. One Tuesday after English class, she lingered by my desk until everyone left. "Jake, right?" she asked, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "I was wondering if you'd want to get coffee sometime? To discuss the Fitzgerald assignment, maybe?" I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. When none came, I realized she was serious. "Yeah, I'd really like that," I managed to reply. That afternoon at home, I couldn't stop smiling. I even caught myself humming while making a sandwich, something my mom noticed with a raised eyebrow. "You're in a good mood," she remarked, the observation itself unusual enough. "Madison Chen asked me out," I said, unable to contain my excitement. The kitchen fell silent. My mom's eyes darted toward the living room where Ethan was sprawled on the couch. I saw something flash across her face, concern. Then she forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That's nice, honey," she said. her voice oddly tight. Just don't get your hopes up too much. Girls like that usually have options. I should have recognized the warning in her words, but I was too caught up in the possibility of something that felt like happiness. Madison and I began meeting for coffee, then study sessions, then actual dates. She laughed at my jokes, listened when I talked, and somehow made me feel like I mattered. For 6 perfect weeks, I experienced what it was like to be chosen first. What I didn't notice during those blissful days was how Ethan watched us in the school hallways. I didn't see the way his smile disappeared when Madison grabbed my hand. I didn't register how he suddenly started showing up wherever we were claiming it was coincidence. And I definitely didn't realize that, for the first time in our lives, my brother was jealous of me and that jealousy was about to turn into something far more dangerous. The darkness inside my brother revealed itself with terrifying precision. It started with small things so small. I almost convinced myself I was imagining them. Madison's text to me would mysteriously go unanswered for hours, only for me to discover later that someone had put my phone on Do Not Disturb. My notebook with careful study guides for Madison and me would disappear the night before our study sessions, reappearing days later behind the washing machine. Once, Madison's favorite sweater that she'd left at our house vanished completely. When I confronted Ethan, he'd flash that winning smile that charmed everyone else in our lives. Sounds like you're getting paranoid, bro. Maybe Madison's too good for you after all. The accusations hit deeper than he knew. Because despite my transformation, despite Madison's genuine affection, part of me still believed I wasn't good enough. Years of being the lesser twin had carved that insecurity into my bones. Things escalated when our 2-month anniversary approached. Madison had invited me to her family's dinner party, a significant step that had me both nervous and elated. The night before, I heard my parents and Ethan talking in hushed tones in the kitchen. When I rounded the corner, they fell silent immediately. "Jake," my mom said, her voice oddly formal. "We need to talk about this Madison situation." My father wouldn't meet my eyes, focused instead on peeling an orange with methodical precision. "What situation?" I asked, though the dread pooling in my stomach told me I already knew. "Ethan is concerned," she continued, as if my brother was some authority figure whose concerns warranted family interventions. "He says Madison has been leading you on while seeing someone else." The lie was so blatant it momentarily stole my breath. Madison and I had spent every free moment together for weeks. There was no one else. But looking at my brother's solemn face, the perfect mask of concerned sibling, I realized with stunning clarity that Ethan had always been the better actor between us. "That's not true," I said, my voice embarrassingly small. My father finally spoke, still focused on his orange. "Maybe you should cancel tomorrow night, just to take some time to think." Not a suggestion, a directive. Number. The firmness of my own voice surprised all of us. "I'm going to Madison's dinner." The look that passed between my parents and Ethan sent ice through my veins. For the first time, I recognized them as a united front, and I wasn't part of it. That night, I lay awake replaying years of subtle favoritism that suddenly didn't seem so subtle. The way my parents beamed at Ethan's B, while ignoring my A's. How they rearranged their schedules for his games but couldn't make it to my academic competitions. The casual cruelty of comparing us while pretending they weren't. Still, nothing prepared me for what happened the next day. I had saved up for weeks to buy a small silver bracelet for Madison, nothing extravagant, but meaningful, with a tiny book charm that referenced our first conversation about Fitzgerald. I'd carefully wrapped it and hidden it in my desk drawer. When I went to retrieve it before school, it was gone. Panic rose in my throat as I tore apart my room. When I finally found the bracelet, it was in our bathroom trash can, broken into pieces, the delicate charm crushed beyond recognition. I confronted Ethan in the hallway before first period, my voice shaking with a rage I'd suppressed for 17 years. "What is wrong with you?" I hissed, shoving the mangled bracelet in his face. Something changed in his expression, thin a mask slipping to reveal something cold and unfamiliar. "Back off," he said, loud enough for nearby students to hear. "It's not my fault Madison's been laughing about your pathetic gift with everyone." The hallway fell silent. Several students turned to watch, including Madison's friend Alyssa. The humiliation burned like acid, even though I knew he was lying. That evening, as I dressed for Madison's dinner in my only nice shirt, my mom appeared in my doorway. "Your father and I think you should stay home tonight," she said, her tone suggesting this was non-negotiable. "Because of what Ethan said?" "He's lying, Mom." She sighed, the sound heavy with something that might have been guilt and a better mother. This girl is causing problems between you and your brother. That's not acceptable. I stared at her, truly seeing her for the first time. I'll be home by 11, I said, brushing past her. I heard her calling my father's name as I left, but I didn't look back. Madison was waiting for me, and for once in my life, I was choosing my own happiness over their approval. I never imagined that decision would nearly cost me my life before the night was over. The line between jealousy and attempted murder was thinner than I ever could have imagined. Despite Ethan's sabotage attempts, Madison's family dinner went perfectly. Her parents welcomed me warmly. Her little sister immediately showed me her science project, and Madison beamed at me across the table in a way that made my chest ache with happiness. For those few precious hours, I experienced what it felt like to be valued, to belong somewhere without constantly comparing myself to Ethan. When Madison asked me to be her date for the winter formal, I didn't hesitate. I spent my entire savings on a charcoal gray suit that the salesperson assured me brought out my eyes. I even splurged on a silver tie that matched the replacement bracelet I'd bought for Madison. For once, I looked in the mirror and didn't immediately search for flaws. Instead, I saw someone worthy of standing beside her. The night of the dance, Madison sent me a photo of herself in a midnight blue dress that made my heart stutter. I texted back that I'd be there in 30 minutes to pick her up in my mom's old Camry that she rarely used. As I adjusted my tie, my mother appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "You clean up well," she said finally, the closest thing to a compliment she'd given me in years. I managed a tight smile. "Thanks. Ethan's staying home tonight," she added, as if this information should matter to me. "He's not feeling well." Something in her tone raised goosebumps on my arms, but I dismissed the feeling. Nothing was going to ruin this night for me, not Ethan, not my parents' disappointment, nothing. I grabbed the car keys from the hook by the door, ignoring the strange silence in the house, the way my father wouldn't look at me, the closed door to Ethan's room. The Camry was parked at the curb, and I slid into the driver's seat with excitement humming through my veins. The first hint that something was wrong came when I turned onto Madison Street. I pressed the brake pedal to slow for a stop sign, and the car barely responded. I pushed harder, my heart rate increasing slightly as the Camry rolled through the intersection. When I pressed the pedal all the way to the floor approaching the next turn, the terrible truth crystallized in my mind. The brakes weren't working. Panic seized my chest as I pumped the pedal frantically. Nothing. Up ahead, the road curved sharply with a steep embankment on one side and a row of parked cars on the other. My mind raced through driver's ed lessons: emergency brake, downshift, find something to collide with that would cause minimal damage. But the car was picking up speed on the slight decline, hurtling toward the curve at nearly 40 miles per hour. Time slowed to a terrifying crawl. I saw a young mother walking with a stroller on the sidewalk ahead. In that moment, I made my choice. I yanked the wheel hard toward the embankment, away from the pedestrians, away from the parked cars, my body tensing for impact. The Camry careened down the grassy slope, bouncing violently before slamming into a drainage ditch. The airbag exploded against my face with concussive force. For several seconds, all I could hear was the ringing in my ears and my own ragged breathing. Warm wetness trickled down my face, blood from my nose, I realized distantly. Somehow, I managed to crawl out of the crumpled car. My hands trembled as I called 911, then Madison to tell her I wouldn't make it to the dance. I didn't tell her why. I couldn't form the words, couldn't voice the horrifying suspicion taking root in my mind. Instead, I called an Uber and went home. The scene that greeted me would be burned into my memory forever. My mother and father sitting stiffly in the living room, Ethan leaning against the wall with an expression that shifted from surprise to something like disappointment when he saw me standing there, alive, my suit torn and spotted with blood. "You," I said, my voice barely recognizable. "You cut the brake lines." Ethan didn't deny it. He didn't say anything at all. My father stood up, his face ashen. "Jake, you're overreacting. There must have been some kind of mechanical." "Stop it," I screamed, tears mixing with the blood on my face. "I could have died. That woman with the baby on Hawthorne Street could have died. And you're still defending him?" My mother's face had gone completely blank, a defense mechanism I'd seen countless times when confronted with uncomfortable truths about her golden child. "Jake, I think you need to calm down and—" "Did you know?" I asked her, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Did you know what he was going to do?" The flicker in her eyes told me everything. "Get out," she said suddenly, standing up. "Get out of my house right now." I stared at her, uncomprehending. "What?" "You heard me. Get your things and leave. I won't have you making these dangerous accusations against your brother." The world tilted beneath my feet. Even after everything, I'd never imagined they would choose Ethan so completely, so irrevocably. Something broke inside me then, the last thread of hope that I'd someday earn their love. Without a word, I stuffed some clothes into my backpack, grabbed my phone charger, and walked toward the door. No one tried to stop me. No one said goodbye. The Uber driver looked concerned at my bloodied face, but didn't ask questions as I directed him to my Aunt Carolyn's house across town. She had always been kind to me, had noticed the difference in how we were treated, but had been shouted down by my mother whenever she mentioned it. As we pulled away from the house I'd grown up in, I looked back one last time. Through the living room window, I could see my family huddled together, consoling Ethan, no doubt. The perfect trio, finally unencumbered by the spare, unwanted son. I turned away, a cold numbness spreading through my chest where pain should have been. I didn't know yet that this wasn't the end of the story, that the worst revelation was still to come. Sometimes the truth is more terrifying than your worst nightmares. My Aunt Carolyn opened her door and gasped at the sight of my suit torn, dried blood on my collar, eyes hollow with betrayal. She didn't ask questions, just pulled me into a hug that nearly broke the fragile composure I'd been clinging to. She cleaned the cuts on my face with gentle hands, made up the guest room, and promised we'd figure everything out in the morning. For the first time in my life, I felt what unconditional care was supposed to feel like. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the car careening down that embankment, imagined what would have happened if I'd swerved the other way. If that mother and baby had been hit. My body shook with aftershocks of adrenaline and rage. The silence of Aunt Carolyn's spare bedroom felt oppressive, making each thought echo louder in my mind. My brother tried to kill me. My parents knew. They chose him anyway. At 2:17 a.m., my phone lit up with my mother's contact photo. I stared at it, wondering what possible explanation she could offer. My thumb hovered over the decline button, but some desperate part of me, part that still longed for her love despite everything, made me answer. "Jake," she whispered, her voice trembling in a way I'd never heard before. "Are you somewhere safe?" The question caught me off guard. "I'm at Aunt Carolyn's." "Good. That's good." She sounded like she was crying. "Listen to me carefully. You can't come back here. Not now. Maybe not ever." An ugly laugh escaped me. "Don't worry, I wasn't planning on it." "No, you don't understand." Her voice dropped even lower. "Your brother. There's something wrong with him. Something I've been denying for too long." My heart hammered against my ribs. "What are you saying?" "Last week, when I complimented your suit for the dance, Ethan overheard. That night, I found him in the garage with the brake lines of my car. He didn't know I saw him." She let out a broken sound, half sob, half manic laugh. "My own son. And I did nothing. I was too scared." Ice flooded my veins. "Too scared of what? Of Ethan?" "He told me once what he'd do if I ever took your side against him. If I ever went to the police." Her voice broke completely. "He said he'd hurt himself, that it would be my fault. That he'd make sure everyone knew I drove him to it." The pieces clicked into horrible place. My mother's strange passivity, the way she always deferred to Ethan, her increasingly nervous glances when he entered rooms. She wasn't just playing favorites. She was being manipulated by her own child. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked, my voice hollow. "Because tonight he realized he failed. The look in his eyes when he saw you walk through that door alive." She trailed off, and I could almost see her shaking her head. "I don't recognize him anymore, Jake. I don't think I have for a long time." "Then call the police," I urged, "before he hurts someone else." "I can't. He's threatening other things now. I just needed you to know that you're safer away from here. From all of us." She hesitated. "I'm so sorry, Jake. For everything. I failed you in ways I can never make right." The line went dead. I sat in the darkness, her words echoing in my mind. The mother I'd spent my life trying to please was, in her own way, as trapped as I had been. The realization didn't erase the years of pain, the scars of neglect, but it shifted something in my understanding of our broken family. Sleep eventually claimed me, and when I woke the next morning, a strange calm had settled over me. Aunt Carolyn had already called her lawyer friend who specialized in family law. Within days, I had a restraining order against Ethan. The police took my statement about the brake lines, though without direct evidence, they couldn't bring charges yet. I transferred to a different high school to finish my senior year and started therapy twice a week. Madison stood by me through all of it. Her unwavering support a constant reminder that I was worthy of love, regardless of my family's dysfunction. Her parents even offered me their guest room until graduation, an act of kindness that moved me to tears. As weeks passed, I began piecing together a new identity separate from the shadow I'd lived in for 17 years. I learned that strength doesn't always announce itself with noise and attention. Sometimes it grows quietly in darkness, nourished by adversity. I discovered that family isn't defined by blood but by those who make you feel safe, seen, and valued. My mother called occasionally, her voice always tense, always worried. She refused to leave my father or confront Ethan directly, trapped in a prison partly of her own making. I felt pity for her, but I was done trying to earn a place in a home that had never truly been mine. They say true strength reveals itself in our darkest moments. For 17 years, I lived as the invisible twin collecting quiet observations while my brother collected praise. What Ethan never understood was that being underestimated gave me the ultimate advantage. When he tried to silence me permanently, he taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Sometimes family isn't defined by blood, but by those who genuinely want to see you thrive. Today, I stand tall with a chosen family who values me, Madison, her parents, my Aunt Carolyn, and friends who see me for who I truly am. The restraining order against my brother is just the beginning. The evidence I've gathered isn't about revenge, it's about justice and protecting others from the damage he could inflict. If you're watching this and feeling invisible in your own story, remember, your worth isn't determined by how others see you. Sometimes being overlooked gives you space to grow stronger than anyone suspects. The person they dismiss today might become the force they can't ignore tomorrow. My journey from shadow to strength is still unfolding. Next week, I'll share what happened when I finally presented my case to the district attorney, including the surprising ally who came forward with crucial evidence that changed everything. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button to help others find it. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts or experiences. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear right now. And subscribe to join our community of resilient souls who've learned that sometimes being underestimated is your greatest superpower. Together, we're writing new endings to old stories, and I can't wait to share the next chapter with you.